All right, everybody. It's great to be with you tonight on the Greater Everyday Podcast. This is a place where we talk about the real issues. We demonize no one. We deify no one. We just deal straight. The Bible is our standard in everything that we do. Faith informs everything that we do. This is a place where we just have real conversations. And we got started last year, right at the beginning of the pandemic. And we've been through quite a journey over this past year. And we're really excited about now not only talking about real issues, but really taking active steps and bringing in folks that are doing real work in the community, yeoman's work in the community, really trying to address the issues that we face as a community. And so here on the Greater Everyday Podcast, we're super grateful for what we're going to be doing over the next several weeks, doing just that. But let's introduce ourselves a little bit and our special guest tonight. So my name is Will Archer, and I'm here with my brother.
I'm Anton Keith. Hey, everybody. What's going on?
Hey.
And I've got my lovely wife, Tasha, here. We're really excited. The three of us are back together again, doing our thing. Let's go.
I'm excited to be here.
We're super excited about this. And we've got Patrick and Ruth, our best friends. They're incredible people. Patrick serves as an elder in the Potomac Valley Church, and his wife, Ruth, is a part of the eldership there. Elder's wife. We're super grateful for them. They've been deacons in the church in Dallas, deacons in the church in Potomac Valley, small group leaders, big group leaders, all sorts of group leaders. And they are parents and now grandparents.
Yes.
Say it again,
Will. Grandparents.
Loud. Grandparents, and they're proud.
But you don't go by grandparents. What's your name?
Gigi. It's Gigi, Will.
Gigi.
And I'm Papa.
Are you Grandpa? Oh, you Pop. Okay.
Papa.
Pop. All right.
Pop and Gigi. So we're super excited to have them here with us. And, they're doing some incredible stuff. There's a whole lot of things that they've been doing in the community for a long time. And but we wanted just to turn it on over to Patrick and Ruth to tell us a little bit about themselves, a little bit about their story. We're just so excited to have you here with us on the Greater Everyday Podcast.
Great.
Thank you. You can start.
Sure. Hey, just real quickly, my name is Patrick Jones. I'm a country boy from Alabama. Grew up in the Tuskegee, Montgomery area. There, I went spent a little time in Huntsville, Alabama, at Alabama A&M University there, where I was reached out to, studied the Bible for the first time, and became a Christian. And then the church there asked me to assist with helping start a ministry in Nashville, Tennessee. So after my first year, they wanted someone who was excited about God, fired up to go get a ministry started. So I gave up my Pell Grant, went out and transferred to Tennessee State, took out a loan, and worked on the campus there. And the first woman that was converted out there was Ruth. So Ruth, that's when Ruth and I first met. 3 years we started dating, then we got married, and then we moved to Dallas, Texas. There, where we're part of the ministry. There, work with the Latino ministry, leading that ministry, working with the regional sector leaders. Then 2001, we moved here to the big VA. So that's a little bit about myself. We have two boys, Patrick, who's 27, Corey's 26. We have our first grandson, Atticus Ezra Jones. He's a dog. And I think that's it about us. So go for it.
Yeah, I think for me, it's always difficult to answer this question about my background or where I'm from, because I've literally have lived all over. I was born in Ohio. Then I moved to Queens, New York. Then I moved to Westbury, New York. Then I moved to Baltimore. Then I moved to Memphis, and then went to school at Tennessee State with Patrick. But my dad was president of the university, so we moved so much due to the college system with him. So anyway, I've worked in criminal justice for over 20 years. When I was in Dallas, I was a parole officer and a probation officer. At Tennessee State, I graduated with a degree in sociology and psychology. So I kind of use that as a parole and probation officer. But anyway, now I work with pretrial services. I did mental health and drug assessments for about 16 years, but now I work specifically in domestic violence court. But on Tuesday, we'll be celebrating our 30th
30 years
anniversary.
30-year anniversary.
Wow, happy anniversary.
So we're excited.
Ruth, I need you to expand a little bit on this. Okay, so when you met Patrick, I don't even know how to answer this question.
Why you had to go there, Tasha? Why you had to go there, Tasha?
She had to go there. She had to go.
This brother had flip-flops and a do-rag on. And I was like, what in the world?
Hey.
So we definitely came from two opposite ends of the spectrum. My family was very educated. His family was not. We were just very different in so many aspects. But my parents love him because they're from the country too. So they connected with him on that level. But it was an experience for me, very eye-opening.
But Ruth has been great. She's taught me all about life because, getting out of the state of Alabama is a big thing. My first flight was to New York to visit the parents. But I didn't mention a little bit about my background. I'm in the public health field. So I've been in the field about 30 years now. So right now I'm working a lot with COVID-19. I have one team that does all the complaint investigation, another team that does with all the logistics, making sure vaccine supplies are getting to the sites, make sure the sites are ready to go. So I've done a number of different things in public health. I worked in code enforcement, animal control, vector control, West Nile virus control, rabies control, you name it. I pretty much has done it. And it's been a really broad field. So right now I'm at the environment health manager for the Prince William Health District. So that's a little about my work. And Ruth and I, again, we have a lot to talk about at times when we get home. So.
Wow, that's exciting, man. Just the chat's blowing up with people saying happy anniversary.
Thank you
so much.
Lots of love getting dropped out in that chat, man. That's pretty amazing.
That's encouraging.
So
go for it.
We guess like this. I mean, they've.
I know, man.
I ain't gonna lie. Kind of starstruck right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know, right? I know.
We didn't even share about our time experience over in Indonesia, Singapore, reaching there, Bali.
That's right.
Yeah,
Man,
I know, man. Well, we want to hear about all of it. We want to hear about all of the experiences. And, but one of the things we want to talk to you specifically about is about this group that you guys lead, which is the Task Force for Cultural Humility in the Potomac Valley Church. And last year really rocked our country and has had a profound impact on our world and definitely on our church. And y'all have served as deacons in Dallas in all these different ministries, from Nashville to Dallas to here. And then you've also been deacons here in Potomac Valley, and you're a part of the eldership here in Potomac Valley. Can you talk to us a little bit about how the Cultural Humility Group came together and kind of how that works? Tell us a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, we were looking back at our notes back in October. When all this went down, across the nation, some of the struggles and different things that we're battling with. I'm so thankful for Will and Tasha. They looked at the passage in Acts 6, where the widows were in need, so they decided to appoint deacons to make sure. So we decided to appoint deacons to address this need. So many different needs across. So we actually reached out to a number of married couples and some singles to really have a very diverse group to address some of the issues across our nation. And it was very impactful. And I'm very thankful because what we decided to do, we heard of some other groups that started. They jumped right into trying to deal with things like racism, different things, without knowing each other and going at it. And they had a lot of tension, a lot of failure because they didn't take time to really know who was in their group. And one thing the archers really encouraged to do, hey, let's hear our stories. So we took from October for about 6 months, just hearing each other's story. And it was amazing to hear all the different things that the brothers and sisters have gone through in life. And each one of them had an experience that could relate to any situation going on in our nation today.
I just want to echo that, though. I think I really understood the importance of taking that time to do that. Teddy Roosevelt once said that people don't know how much you know until they know how much you care. And I really saw that ring true, and just really taking the time to understand where people have come from. We can look at each other and make certain assumptions, but you don't know my story, and you won't know it unless I tell it. And I think what we found is that we didn't know each other as deeply as we thought we did. because there were certain aspects that were never shared. And I think part of it is because no one really ever asked. So it was amazing just to really see the group come together and get unified on a heart level. It was so inspiring. So now it's easier, I think, to go through and to tackle and to talk through the tough issues because we have a reference point. We understand each other's triggers, at least have an idea. We may not totally understand. You know, no one can walk in my shoes, but they can sympathize or understand through my experiences. So once we get together to talk through things, I think it's going to be a colorful conversation, to say the least.
Yeah,
you know,
and it's been great. We've been having healthy conversations. I think that keep having healthy conversations where you can actually hear each other, listen, not be very quick to judge, but seeing that someone came from a place that, you know, we know nothing about. And it's very humbling because there's brothers and sisters in that group that I've been known for 10, 15 years. I didn't even know what they actually went through in life and the upbringing, some of the things they faced. For example, like growing up in Alabama, you know, I was taught that, you know, white was superior, that I had to listen and obey. And growing up to that, I didn't know until I got older that, you know, it's okay to say no, because just how I was grew up. But in that group, we had just different things that brothers and sisters were going through. And there was some tears. There were some great unity. But right now, we are ready to tackle any issue that comes across the table because we feel God has blessed our time, blessed our hearts, that we are wise, we're spiritual, and we're in touch with each other where we are. So
I think I also realized, I feel like it was very therapeutic for all of us. I mean, I realized that I really didn't want to go there. We ended up sharing last. And actually, we weren't going to share because we felt like everyone knew our stories until one of the women in the group was like, well, have you guys gotten a chance to share? And we didn't because we just assumed they did. But it's very therapeutic, really thinking through your past and why you do the things you do and what triggers you. So I felt like I learned a lot about myself through it and having to go back and look at my own demons and my own biases. So, but it's been an amazing experience and we really look forward to just moving forward with where we're going with all of this.
And we love our group. And, you know, the big thing is it's really helped me in my role and things I do, not be so quick to judge, to really look at people and take them where they are. We have all at some point fallen. And, you know, in the past, I was taught if a person fell, you know, you just kick them and keep kicking them. But I'm very humbled that, you know, not just kick them anymore, but help them get up and walk. And this has been very good group for me, very humbling. It's changed my heart in so many ways of how I look at people. I used to look at people and be very quick to judge, but now I look at them through the eyes of Jesus and like, hey, how can I help you get to the water? How can I help you get on your feet? So it's definitely changed my life tremendously. So that's a little bit about that group. So we got really good.
We just asked one question. We just asked one question. And you got all that. That was beautiful. Okay,
well,
thank you so much. Thank you for being so vulnerable. It sounds like the both of you learned so much from leading this group in the first place. And they've learned so much from you. Thank you for being willing to share your story with them. And I even think about what it must be like for you guys watching this and listening to them and watching the dynamics of the group change. How do you think the dynamics of the group has changed by everybody being able to listen to each other's stories?
I think for one, the group at first the group was kind of hesitant. What is this? What are we getting ourselves into? And some came in with a thing is that, hey, I can't be touched. You know, I'm in a place that I know it all. I have together. This is how, and some have very strong, deep convictions on certain things, you know, when it came to different race and type. But, you know, after hearing everybody's story, hearts change. That's the big thing. Those that came with the conviction that, hey, this is how they'll, judgment-wise, came to a place of, you know what, maybe I've been looking at things wrong for over the years. Maybe I should have a little more understanding, a little more sincerity. So what I saw change is really the hearts of really looking at people. You know, we looked down the crowd and had compassion on them. That's what this group has seen now. They look at people now, they hear stories now, and they have more compassion and love, and not a very quick heart to attack. So
I have one word: humility. I think that's what I saw after the first person shared, and humility breeds humility. So I think she expressed just her challenges and the things that she went through in life. I think it really set the pace for everyone else to share on a vulnerable level. And I think it helped me to see that that's really what it takes. When you walk into a situation to get to know somebody, you can't assume, you can't have judgment. You've got to be humble, and it just humility breeds humility.
Agree. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so powerful. So just to back up a little bit, so for anyone that's listening that's not a part of the Potomac Valley Church, so we are a family of believers. We have a community of 600, almost 700 people here in the Woodbridge area, and in Fredericksburg, and in Stafford, and in King George, and extending all the way up to DC. And we've got 20 small groups that spread from DC all the way down to Fredericksburg. But we're really blessed that in our congregation, we have 2 elder couples. So we've got, Patrick and Ruth, and Tom and Eileen, they're elders that serve in our congregation. And now we're blessed. We have 20 deacons and deaconesses. So we have a whole cadre of deacons and deaconesses. But Patrick and Ruth specifically work with this task force. And this is a task force headed by Patrick and Ruth, but made up of deacons and deaconesses. But the task force, it's racially diverse, it's politically diverse, it's not super economically diverse. Everyone's pretty much about middle income, but it's definitely very racially and politically diverse. And I know you guys intentionally put that group together that way because you wanted to make sure that you had you heard all the voices of people. And I know you guys are reaching out to talk to young people and older people to really have an understanding of things. But these deacons, they really are a reflection of our church. What have been some of the challenges that you've had just with this initial stage of listening to stories? What have been some of the big challenges? It's been really great to hear the blessings, but I know that group, and they're amazing people, but they're very different.
They are. I would say, I think the challenge at first, how you go into a room and you think you know a person, and you had to deal with a person for many years. For example, you may see someone say, "Oh, she's just a mad Black woman. He's just a hardcore male. He has no sensitivity. I wonder what happened to him with a child." But I was very humbled because after I heard the story of a couple of them, I understood why they are where they are. When you listen to what they went through as a child, I mean, it brought tears. I was so humble that I had to call them up after it even gets me emotional now because for a long time, I was wondering why were they a certain way. But when they went to the details, it's a very in-depth discussion, very vulnerable, very humble, sharing and open doors that they probably had not opened in years to share about. They wanted that group to know them to death because they knew that we'd have to address these issues. But hearing that story, it just really humbled me out. And I had many conversations after our talks just to say, hey, I'm sorry. For years, I looked at you and I thought you were a certain person because of this, but I'm so humbled because now I totally understand where you are. So the challenge of really seeing, after all these years, really seeing something you thought was there, but really wasn't there.
Yeah, I think on the flip side of it, the challenge is making sure you don't label. So that's why she acts that way. I had a conversation with a sister about that after, some sharing was done, just to make sure we don't do that. Just because maybe somebody was sexually abused or somebody lost their job, that you don't label the person for being a certain way because of it. So I think just being very careful with that. And I think just allowing somebody, when somebody is sharing their story, just allowing them to go there and not interject when there's pain involved, to sit back and allowing them to express.
And one thing, Will, I think as a thing that was very challenging, some of the stories reminded me of the scars that I was still working through. My parents went through divorce when I was 2. My grandparents raised me, and the relationship I had with my grandfather wasn't the best, there. But then to watch his life come around, I can remember my dad when I was a certain age. He, just very quickly, He came to visit me when I was like 4 or 5, around Christmas time. He asked me, my brother and I, whatever we want, you're going to get for Christmas. We wake up Christmas, nothing there. He called me out when I was 16 years old, said happy birthday. He called me at 21, said, you're a man now. Then he called me when I was 28 years old, but he was on his dying bed. Wanted to just change and get to know me. There's other stories within that group just like that.
Yeah.
And I was able and very blessed to, with the church, to be around older men that really helped me to know how to be a father and a husband, because I did not have that growing up. But that was some of the challenges there. So.
So it looks like we got a question on the screen. I know you guys can see that, right? Okay, so Arlene's asking, what's one of your favorite scriptures when confronting a difficult challenge?
I would say as far as diversity, the scripture in 1 Corinthians 12, which talks about how the body is made up of different parts and just how we all need to function together, and how people come from so many different backgrounds, but God demands unity, and that, we've got to really fight for that unity. So I don't know, that scripture was the first thing that popped into my mind.
I think for me, it's a passage that was given to me when I first became Christian. The whole book of Songs, Songs 37. Every time I go to this challenge, you have so many parts in there. I think one of Ruth's friends says, no matter what people do to you, you remain righteous. In that Songs 37, it talks a lot about don't be envy of those who do wrong. At the right time, you will reap a harvest if you're righteous. So Psalms 37 is really reminding me that, hey, when I'm struggling, when I'm confronted with time, just keep my level head and be righteous, and God will bless you. So Psalms 37 is one of my favorite one. And the person that reached out to me gave me that because I went through a lot of challenges growing up from family and different things. And he said, hey, you know what? You are the light of the world, like the green grass. It's just the Psalms 37 is a very powerful song. It's like someday it'll die away, but for you, if you remain righteous, you can stand firm. So Psalms 37 is one of my favorite ones I always go back to, and it's been very helpful.
You guys wanna take a stab at that?
Yes. I'm over here thinking about questions.
So, you want your favorite?
Sure.
Yeah, I know Psalms is so good. I remember when we were having a pod one day.
Yeah,
and I was talking about like, nah, I don't think people are good. Nah, and you were like, pull up Psalms real quick, and you showed me one, and I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever read in my life. Psalms is so good, especially when you're feeling down, you're feeling despair, because I did the Bible project, and I listened to like the background of Psalms. And it's almost like that's what it's for.
Yeah.
When you feel down, it's like you need to read this, and the way they put it together and things like that. It's so amazing.
I like Psalms just because I feel like I'm crazy a lot of times. And when you read this, they're just, the emotions are just up and down and everywhere.
They are.
But what it does is it helps me to see it's okay to be crazy, and that God can handle your prayers. He can handle your crazy thoughts. And maybe they're not as crazy as you think they are. When you read Psalms, you're like, because 1 second, usually David is like, man, I'm so lucky. I'm so happy. Thank you so much, God, for this, that. Just banish my enemies because I can't stand them. Like he goes up and down. And he's like, but you know what? Now I'm having a quiet time and I'm so happy again. Like he's just so up and down. But that's real. Like that's how we are every day. Yeah. But one of the Psalms that I love is Psalm 16, where it talks about how God's boundaries for us fall in pleasant places. And for me, I love that scripture. And I read it when it's meant something different to me every stage of my life. And so I remember when I read it in the first place, and I was a single woman, and I was like, wow, God's boundaries are put for me in very pleasant places. So if he puts a boundary up and I don't get married at this point, if he puts a boundary around that, then that's got to be a pleasant place for me. God's going to be to find pleasure in that, And then I got married, and it just goes on and on and on. Every boundary that God put around me, I thought, this is something to protect me. He has something good for me. So that's why I love that scripture.
Man, that's deep.
Yeah,
That's real deep. You know, for me, I'm like,
we light the candle again.
I don't even know how to go. You know, mine, interestingly enough, is Psalm 73, and Psalm 73 is just, that's where I go, because man, I struggle with my heart. You know, when I see all the wickedness in the world and the evil in the world, and that's why I'm so grateful for what you guys are doing, because the truth is people don't know how to come together, you know, and you're talking about a group of people that are racially and, you know, and ideologically diverse, that are all Christians. Like the unifying thing that ties all the people in the Cultural Humility Task Force together is Jesus is Lord. But they come from different parts of the country. They work in different jobs. They have different perspectives, different attitudes. And to hear that over the past 6 months, when everything's been raging, you guys have been meeting. I think y'all meet like 7 o'clock in the morning, like early. These are super busy people. So they 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning, they meet. And, you know, most of us, you know, we're going through our week, 5 days a week, getting up early, getting it done. But Saturday, you want to sleep in. You guys get up early, and you're getting real and vulnerable and going deep. And I'm just inspired by that, because you know, for me, you know, I've struggled over this past like 18 months trying to make sense of my own faith. And as you know, we're very, very close. So you know my struggle. You know? And Psalm 73 is I feel like I've been living here over and over and over again. You know, and what I love about this passage in Psalm 73 is, you know, he just makes the case. He says, you know, in verse 25, whom have I in heaven but you, and the earth has nothing I desire besides you. You know, that really having that godly perspective, but it takes going through the hurt and the pain to get there. So I really appreciate you guys practically putting that into play, and now getting ready to mobilize that group to help us as a church, you know, to help our staff, to help our leaders, to help the whole church to really understand how to practically implement cultural humility. You know, that's really cool.
Amen.
That's deep stuff, man. So question for you. So we got the opportunity to get together with you guys on Saturday. Yesterday, we got together and we heard a bunch of questions. So can you tell us, first off, who's in this group? So for the people in Potomac Valley, we would know who they are. The people that are listening, in China, they might not know who they are. So tell us a little bit about this.
So can we can give names, right? We're safe to give names, right?
It's totally fine, because we're actually going to ask them to come on.
Yeah, we're going to invite all of them to come on.
They can defend themselves later.
Right. Well, I'm gonna start off. We have we have a north and a south area. So we have 3 couples in the south. We have Dan and Brenda Hines.
And what's the south?
In the south, I'm sorry, the south is just Fredericksburg campus that meets there. So. Anything I want to add to that besides that? Okay, got me. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. We have Dan and Brenda Hines who live down in the Fredericksburg area. Of course, they're known throughout the church. We have Patrick and Christine Oliveris, also in the Fredericksburg area. Then we have Bruce and Renee Facondas. They actually live up in the Northern Virginia area, but they ministry down south in the Fredericksburg area, part of the ministry there. So. And then up north, we have Brandon and Jennifer Thorpe, who Anton, right next door neighbors.
Hey neighbors, that's good.
Neighbors, you can walk across the
next door. Yeah.
We have Phil and Shinner Starr, who's in the same area. Then we have Brian and Yasmin Valencia. So they're all very diverse, young kids, no kids, different backgrounds, grandkids, militaries, the Hines, you name it. They have something that they can relate to, from Louisiana, from down there to all over the world, New York, so different things. So those are the individuals. I don't know if you want me to go into the depth they're willing to share about them, but that's
it's a great group that's racially diverse. White person, Hispanic, Black, Japanese. Yasmin's part Japanese. You know,
Come on.
So it's an amazing group of people. So we're just very inspired by them, and it's definitely God called that group together. It's so evident. So we're really inspired. Love the group.
Love the group. And I will say, we have some strong sisters, with some strong personalities in that group. So that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
They don't mind speaking their piece. They don't mind speaking their minds.
Yes.
But their husband, it's amazing how God just created the husband to be a perfect match for them to help balance them out when it comes to who they are. So, but we have a very good group, very good group.
You balance me too, right?
Yeah, because I got strong one next to me here. So, I have to remind her every now and then. You're not dealing with the criminals. You're dealing with the man, the husband.
I just want to say, I'll never forget. We went on vacation together, and I went to the gym, and I ran by Ruth in the gym, and I was like, "Yo, Ruth ain't playing, man." I'm just glad that I'm on the same team with Ruth. Sister can handle herself, man. I made my way out of the gym.
Did she have that look on her face like, don't talk to me?
She had that look like, don't mess with me. You know, I might hurt you. And I was like, but we friends know. But I know you, but you don't know me here. So that's where I'm leaving. I'm just saying, hey, if we got to go down a dark alley, Ruth can go first. Cool. I'm not ashamed. Go ahead, Harriet. Either way, Harriet. Go ahead, General. We got it.
All right, guys. Looks like Patrick Oliveris has the next question. He says, "What inspired led the Joneses leading the Cultural Humility Group as opposed to other elders or ministry staff?"
Yes. So
amen.
You want to hit that first? What you thinking?
It's interesting. I won't name who it is, but I listened to I guess it's a podcast in the morning, and the person that facilitates it, he talks about just racial diverse issues and stuff. And the one thing he keeps saying when people call in is, what are you going to do about it? You know, he really challenges them not just to talk about the issues, but are you going to be a part of the change? And I think for me, it's interesting because when we were asked to do it, I wasn't all in at first, because I knew there would be times where I would have to go there, I would have to deal with the own demons in my heart. But I really want to be a part of the change. I really want to be in the room where it happens. I really, really do. So I think for me, that's what pushes me to get up at 7. Well, we normally get up at 6, 5, when we have the meetings on those Saturday mornings. But I want to be a part of the change. I really want to be used by God in that area. I've seen a lot of disparities in our world, and I feel like for me personally, I definitely feel like it's a calling. I mean, even working in the criminal justice field as long as I have and seeing the disparities in that, I just want to be a part of change.
Yeah. So. And the only thing I will add is that Ruth and I still have connections all over the world to different churches. And as we know, a lot of churches are not having those real conversations. Yeah. They reached out to us and they wanted to get real. And it was great to hear from teens all the way to, we know some of these, they're singles and married now, but the extra question, is there anything wrong with me because of my color? Is there anything I could do different? We were hearing this before all this started happening. That's true. Yeah. And we start having, and Ruth and I start watching different videos, and we looked at it as a great opportunity to kind of give back, to share, because we know we know there are people out there hurting and holding stories inside that they can't wait to just talk. And I was very humble. There was a young lady at another congregation. She actually wrote a letter. She wrote a letter expressing how she didn't understand why she was treated a certain way as a young female, Black young girl. And she was wondering why, and she actually wrote to the church. She wanted to know why she's been treated different, before it all stood out. Yeah. And they could not answer her question. In fact, they didn't even respond to a letter. Yeah. Her parents reached out to us just for, hey, can you just help her understand? And we were able to have a great talk with her parents, But stories like that,
Yeah.
where our young future generation don't have an opportunity to express who they are and where they are and where they're going, and they just want someone to hear the story. So those are the kind of things that really inspired us. So
I think also I love this quote by Maya Angelou. It says, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And I think for us, we're not experts in issues of diversity, but we know how to love people. We know how to draw people in. You know, we know how to listen. And that is our goal, to really listen, to really hear people's stories, to really be agents of change. So that's what I really look forward to.
Yeah. And I want to thank, I'm glad Patrick O asked that question, because Patrick and I go way back. He is my I'm going to call my teacher in the faith. Anytime I have a topic of hunger, in fact, I was going through my emails. I got emails going back where he did studies on things years and years and years on topics that I kept, and just his friendship and depth has really helped me. But this group is amazing. It has taught Ruth and I so much about ourselves, about life itself, but it's just been so encouraging. So.
Yeah, we feel like we need it for us, you know, so we definitely feel blessed.
Yeah. So I got to share this. So we also start sharing with another small church, down south, we start meeting with them. They reached out to us because they have a number of individuals they want to shepherd, becomes shepherds and elders. And we start reaching out to them, and they ask us what has been helpful. And we say, hearing your story, let people hear your story. So now they're actually going through hearing each other's story, and it has definitely already started to impact there. And we normally have a 7:00 meeting with our group, and then we hit them at 1:00. So that Saturday is a feel fruitful, encouraging day, very inspiring day once we're done. So.
That's amazing.
I love it. I just love listening to you guys, because it's just inspiring. One of the things I wanted to ask you, if you could just stop and think about what were some of the fears that you had starting this group. And the reason why I'm asking this is because there's so many people who are listening who might be afraid to start something, or to step out there and do something that they've never done before, or even seen anyone do, because you guys didn't really even have anybody to emulate in this. You're pioneers. So what were some of the fears that you had in starting to lead this group?
I think for me, just finding my voice and realizing that, number one, I don't have to know it all. You know, I only need to be an expert in me. In my experience and my challenges, and just not really wanting to go there. I've had a lot of challenges growing up racially. We were always the token family. You know, I grew up in an in Baltimore, it was a Hasidic Jewish neighborhood. And then when we moved to Memphis, it was an all-white neighborhood, and we were the token Black family. I went to an all-white private school for a year, and had a lot of challenges with that. But just really having to unpack, how do I really feel about this? You know, and knowing that I need to express it, because as we said earlier, humility breeds humility, you know, that I really need to share how I feel. So I'm still unpacking all of that now. The whole process has been therapeutic for me. And I've still got to dig deeper to figure out, well, how do I feel about this? And even within the church, you know, because we got issues within the church.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Every Sunday, you know, that we're truly messed up people, you know. So for me to be able to be willing to confront brothers and sisters that I may feel challenged by, or that rub me the wrong way, and to not wait weeks later. So I'm still working through all of that, and working through what is it that I really feel, because I think as a Christian, as a disciple, for years I've been suppressed that I'm not supposed to think that way. You know, you're supposed to love everyone, which you are, but how do you really feel about that? So for me to ask myself those questions, what am I really feeling? How do I think about that? So that's the challenge that I see.
Yeah, I just said briefly, I think for me, the fear of seeing who I really am, the insecurities from the past, and Will has definitely helped me out a lot because, again, my upbringing, I was told to, shut down, and Will, he's really helped me about being the head and not the tail. That passage I always love. But the insecurity of knowing once you share your life, how your grandfather told you you'd never be anything, and you have an 8th grade teacher tell you that you're not going to graduate from high school, and how the kids teased and laughed at you because you had a stuttering problem, but you could not afford to get therapy. And so I was really ashamed of a lot of things. So I didn't know how people would accept me coming out of this, but I got more love. But just knowing to go back and talk about some of those things, because those are scars that that takes time to heal. And sometimes you get in a group, that insecurity comes in. What if you say something, do something, if they see something, or if someone reminds you something that you grew up with, and it's flashbacks. Yeah. And then you have those different things come through. So I think the insecurity myself was a fear myself, but it really helped me to actually be more in touch with areas where I thought I had shut the door and heal. Really helped me to bring to light and heal a little bit more in depth. So
yeah, I think with that being said, also just recognizing that that's Satan, that he wants us to stay quiet and to keep our mouths shut, so there won't be things, So I think realizing who the real enemy is, because I feel like that God wanted me to speak years ago, but even like my voice doesn't matter. What I have to say, it's insignificant. I've had to wrestle through that.
Yeah. So as you know, it's been a new me. I've been more vocal about certain things, more direct about certain things. My job is like, where'd you come from? Right. I had to have these talks where you have to confront your boss. You have to cut the boss. And you know what? You crossed the line, and you're not going to cross that line again in a very professional way. But they came to a pause. They just stared at me. And the humbling thing is, they stared at me and they thanked me. And they got emotional, and they said, you know what? I appreciate you confronting me like that and not accepting that. And I'm sorry. That's a person that, when you get the boss to say you're sorry, that goes a long way. Yeah. So anyway, so I'm more vocal now because of this, and it's been very helpful. So anyway, I would say that. So
that's outstanding. Yeah, no, that's outstanding. It's so critical to have that courage to stand up and speak out. And honestly, what I really appreciate about what you're doing is right now our country doesn't know how to do this, and our communities don't know how to do this, and a lot of our families don't know how to do this, and a lot of our churches we don't know how to do this. But I really appreciate just your commitment, the commitment of our eldership here to look at Acts 6 and say, all right, this is what they did in the Bible. They were confronted with an issue, and here's how they handled it. And the fact that we have a whole task force of these really talented people being willing to step in and really address these issues are huge. And Anton and I, we talked about this, that we want to be able not just to have you as this one time, but to really invite members of your team to come on and to tell us their story and talk to us about what we're practically doing, because we need to make change, and we need to make it right now. Yeah. And we need people that are willing to step up and have the courage and the vulnerability and the cultural humility that you guys really embody. So super grateful for that.
Yeah. I got a question. You kind of touched on it a little bit. And I guess it's kind of, if you can figure this out, it'll actually help, because you said families don't know how to talk to each other. Yeah. We actually coined a new word over the past 2 years, and it's called triggered. Now everything is a problem. The issue with that when you have honest conversations like that, something's going to offend you.
Yep.
You're gonna get triggered, and it's just it's not. But I think the key is there's no intent. I may be telling my story, as you guys have heard, and something might be offensive to you. But again, I'm not trying to offend you. I'm just sharing.
Right.
So my question is, how have you been able to, like you guys mentioned, like you've all the conversations have been positive but real. But now, these days, and I'm sure you probably see it as you go on, people are waiting to explode. People are waiting to say, this offends me. You can't do this anymore. I don't understand why are you the way you are? And, and this happened to me, so you need to be different. How have you dealt with just keeping things moving along for long enough for people to hear the whole thing and not just take something that you say out of context or something like that? Because I think that's sort of a problem where we can't really talk to each other anymore because we're waiting. Like, she's going to say something, and as soon as she does, I'm shutting it down in here. I'm knocking this microphone down and storming out because I'm triggered now. So how, if you've experienced that, how have you been able to kind of pause and then maybe redirect and then keep the train going?
Yeah, I think for me, just praying continually, because honestly, everything triggers me.
There you go. She knows.
I get challenged by a lot of things, and it helps when Pat and I have conversations with people that we're sitting very close, because he'll pat my leg to get me to recenter and to calm down and to stay focused, but I gotta stay prayed up. It's hard. It's challenging. And so that's how Satan gets me with these little triggers. And if I don't deal with the little triggers, they become huge. So I just personally have to stay prayed up.
Yeah, so, I think that, and I think, not afraid to have those conversations. I know for a little while there, we had a few couples come over, and it was called Real Talk with the Joneses. So we had my oldest son. That
sounds like a show right there.
Real Talk with the Joneses.
It was really great. I was going, my oldest son, his wife, and my youngest son. And then we had a family bring their kids over. It's amazing when kids can hear you have real conversations, and it's okay. So we was able to sit down and say, hey, you can ask us anything you want to ask us because we're the Joneses. And it was the Real Talk with the Joneses. And, at times kids have some really good questions, questions that, they're ashamed of or they feel they can't talk about. But when they feel they can get an environment where they can talk about something and they're going to feel safe and not look that different, it's been amazing. So just knowing that has been very helpful. Ruth said praying, studying, having a good circle of people that you can be real with. I think that's been very helpful in our walk. And then Ruth and I have real talk. We don't always agree, but we have some real talks, some real good conversations. Strong personality. But we.
Who are you gonna say? You're level-headed.
Level-headed.
So I gotta be a strong personality. You gotta be level-headed. I can't be level-headed.
I feel like you got triggered.
That's a trigger.
Yeah, that was a trigger.
That's a trigger. That's a trigger. So, with that, I said, I would say this, for families out there, it's okay to have real talks with your kids.
Yeah, that's important.
They hear things at school. We had those talks with our kids. They hear things that they want to talk about. They have questions. One of the wisest men that really helped, he was like a father to me. He says, you know what? You want to give them the answer and not the world. You want to be the one to give them the answer and not the world.
Yep.
Because my son had some questions from around the bus. And he said, you want to have a talk. And so I got my book and had a little talk with them. And, it really paid off because he heard it from dad and mom and not from the world. Because once you start feeding your kids the information, there's no telling what you're going to get. But when mom and dad and at home feed them a healthy spiritual conversation, it pays off long term.
Yeah, but the challenge I would say with that is that when our kids were growing up, we didn't have the influence of social media.
Yeah.
So I think now even more so it's so important to have those conversations and to even bring it up before your kids do.
Yeah.
Because they're hearing a lot, they're feeling a lot, and they may not communicate it, or they may not know how to communicate it. But I think those conversations are so important.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I know it's crazy. Parents are just understated. I remember being the most racial abuse I've ever experienced. It was probably my first 2 years on the job.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember working midnights. And I remember
as a cop.
Yeah, as a cop. And like being a patrol guy, just walking through neighborhoods and just walking in like Black neighborhoods and like just getting abuse like hurled at me. And I remember like, and I had never experienced it in my life.
Right.
And so I remember like getting off work. I know my father would go to work at 7 a.m. I was getting off at like 6 a.m. and I would wait before I went to sleep. And I would call him like that. I just can't, like, this guy just said this to me. He just said that. He's like, well, I didn't want you to do that job anyway. But after that, I got that speech every day. He's like, you know, like, but then he softened up and was like, this is why I didn't want you to do this. You know, it's not, they're not directing it at you. They're directing it at your uniform. And you have to heal yourself and you have to like, you know, like steel your resolve and you know, because you have a job to do out there, because if you're so worried about that, then you can't really help people, which is what I know you want to do.
Right.
And so I just think now resolve is like at an all-time low.
Yes.
And we're just like we're waiting to be influenced, we're waiting to be upset, we're waiting to be angry about something. But then that causes people, because if I want to say something, but I know my story is gonna make you upset, then I'm not like you said. I'm afraid. I don't want to say anything now. I'm just like, I'll just wait. You know, maybe I'll wait a few months and you know, maybe let the Joneses get a little bit better at what they're doing before I say something.
Maybe I'll just call the Joneses.
Have all of our conversation for us.
Can I get a private lesson, please? But yeah, it's I just hopefully we can figure out, because that's the key.
Right.
You're gonna be able to hear things and not just immediately say, "Get out of my house." I'm logging off.
Right. It's crazy you guys are bringing this up, because I have a son who's 18 years old. We do. Wow, he's 18 years old, and he's going to be going off to college, and I'm all of a sudden thinking about, well, how do I prepare him for these hard conversations that he's going to have? How do I prepare him for the racism that he will definitely encounter? Sometimes racism that he might encounter within the church, within the campus ministry that he's in. And how does he talk to the leaders? How does he talk to the people around him? What should he expect? All these things I'm thinking about that I never thought about before, that I had to prepare him in this way.
Yeah.
Y'all got some advice for me?
Pray.
Man, I tell you what, here's the thing. While you're calibrating the advice, here's what I want to say. This is a deep conversation. And we got to go there. And what I really appreciate more than anything else is, I know you had your apprehensions. I know you had your fears. I know you've had your doubts. But you are willing to step into the arena. And you're willing to rally a task force to take on the real issues. And the truth is, that's 90% of the battle won. It's just the fact that you're willing to do that. And, in our world, we need healthy models. We need healthy models, strong families. No matter where you come from, you can build a great family. And be a great family. And also we need healthy models of people that don't think the same way, working together and working things out. And so I really appreciate how your team is doing that. And I appreciate and I have great faith about how you're going to really help us as a church to really be that and really be the light of the world. I mean, our church is a diverse church. So your team represents our church. And so I'm really excited to see how God's going to move through that. But man, I tell you what, like Tasha said, this stuff is real, man. Just when I think I turn a corner, man, I see that we have there's a lot of miles to go. So,
but we want to thank you for just being willing to step out there and do something that scared you even, because it shows us that God blesses those who show up, those who are willing to step out on faith and do something, even when it's scary. So thank you for doing that, because we're relying on you. We are relying on you.
No pressure.
No pressure.
on your whole team.
pressure.
On your whole team, not just on your. We got faith in the whole team. And the Holy Spirit to do it. You know?
Oh yeah, that's what I meant. Whole team.
Amen.
The whole team.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
But if people want to reach out to you, though, Anton's gonna put your information in the contact.
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
we can
notes.
do that in the show
Yeah,
notes.
great.
Yeah, I can do that, and I can also put them in the chat for people. You know, if they read this or they watch this later or something like that. No, probably like half our church is watching this right now, but but you know, it'll keep playing and stuff like that. But I'll put the information there, and for the people who listen to this on the audio only version, which is a lot of our people in Dublin. In
That's right.
Namibia, and Thailand, and France, and all those places.
Much love to y'all.
You guys, we'll just have that stuff in the show notes for you guys. If you want to, just make sure you hit if it's not English, hit Google Translate before you send, and it'll get over to them, and it can help you. Like you said, these guys have helped people all around the world, and they will help you as well. So, you guys ready to be done? We're done. We're approaching an hour, so I think we should.
We're so grateful for your time, and we're so grateful for your leadership, and we can't wait to hear from your team. So the next couple of weeks, for everybody that's listening to the Greater Everyday podcast, we're going to stay here with Cultural Humility and really talk about what it looks like to have that greater everyday leadership and that practical leadership on the ground, getting it done for real. You can talk a lot about change, but we really appreciate that you guys are committed to really being about change in the community where you live and where you serve, and where you have your kids and your grandson. And we're so grateful for that. So for everybody that's been with us, thank you so much for joining us on the Greater Everyday podcast. As you can tell, this is a place where we demonize no one, deify no one, just deal straight with the real issues. And we look forward to you joining us next week as we continue this conversation about cultural humility with the with some new members of the Cultural Humility Task Force. Thank you so much. Much love and respect.